Well, here we are. Woke anti-gamer propagandist and faux game journalist Alyssa Mercante has begun the process of legal action. I'm Fox, and this is RealMarcFoxx, your home for rational, reasonable, real gamers. Let's roll that intro.
You betray the law!
As of the release of this video, I'm not aware that she has actually had her attorneys file in court, but her attorney has sent a letter to KiwiFarms. And while I don't know a lot about KiwiFarms, I do know one thing: you probably don't want to mess with them. Alyssa Mercante's attorney goes by the name Lane Haywood, although on X he goes by Lane_Stellmaker, which could be his wife's last name. That's hard to say. Attorney Haywood sent an embarrassingly unprofessional and insult-laden letter to Matthew Harden, who apparently represents Joshua Moon of KiwiFarms. We can assume Matthew Harden is an attorney. And in this letter, he refers to quite a lot of different statutes from different states, although it's important to keep in mind that if you don't live or operate in the jurisdiction of a state, you generally are not held accountable to those states' laws. Furthermore, Attorney Haywood goes on somewhat of a tirade, using extremely unprofessional and even personal language at times, as if he himself just passionately hates KiwiFarms and wanted to stick it to him. Briefly, we'll cover some of the stuff at the end of the letter and then go backwards. I'm going to be talking from a point of experience here. While I do have some legal training, I am not a licensed attorney, so please don't think that I am. To repeat, Mr. Moon is not currently in our crosshairs. You know, crosshairs are used with firearms and weapons. Crosshairs imply the potential for physical injury, even death. I don't know why you'd use the term crosshair. It sounds aggressively violent. And if this thread removes the docs and never leaves the non-public portion of KiwiFarms forums, then there will be no reason for us to give Mr. Moon the time of day. That's a strange phrase. I've read a lot, and I mean a lot of legal filings in my time. So many, in fact, it's in the hundreds, potentially surpassing 1,000. I have read tens of thousands of pages of legal filings at this point in my life. Yes, I'm not kidding. He goes on to say, the less KiwiFarms puts our clients in danger or blah, 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 the less we will have to get involved in Joshua Moon's business. Again, our sole concern here is Alyssa's well-being, and this threatens that well-being if it is released in its current form. As modified, and if it stays private, then we do not believe that it represents a serious threat and may be safely ignored. It would be in your client's interest to keep it that way. We look forward to hearing back from you within 30 days with news that Joshua has complied with this demand without amendment or complaint. If he does so, this will conclude the matter, and this firm will go back to its usual policy of trying to think about Joshua Moon and KiwiFarms as little as humanly possible. If he fails to heed this friendly warning, we'll be forced to change our policy. Ooh, it is rare for someone to have such control over their own fate. That is extremely unusual and strange language for a legal professional to use. It's underhandedly passive-aggressive. It's almost as if Lane Haywood is a raging left-wing lunatic wokey, and guess what? Well, before he did the typical left-wing wokey strategy of locking down his X account, I was able to see that he retweeted a left-wing troll who defamed Elon Musk as a Nazi. Yes, that's right. Apparently, Lane Haywood is not aware that it's pretty easy to prove whether or not a person is or is not a Nazi, and therefore it would be defamatory and could be subject to litigation if you were to refer to someone openly and publicly as a Nazi. As an attorney, he should know better than to do that. But again, with these left-wing radical wokey types, they let that political bias get the best of them, and they post all sorts of content on their Twitter/X that they know they're not supposed to, and this is exactly why Lane Haywood locked his account down. You can be sure that if you look at the tweet count on his account, it'll be steadily going down as he muddles through all of his previous tweets and is deleting everything he thinks might make him look bad. So back to the first page, he says this threat in question violates the laws of various states and jurisdictions. Well, that's fine, but if you don't live or operate in that state, then it's unlikely it'll be relevant at all. There are some cases where it could be, but again, it's not necessarily relevant just because it's a law in a state. If you don't live in Alaska, you don't have to worry about Alaska's gun permit laws unless you visit there. You follow the gun permit laws of your own state. So again, why he's mentioning just a variety of different states, I'm not sure if these are relevant to KiwiFarms and Joshua Moon specifically. They may be, I don't know. However, what I really want to get to here is the fact that he refers to Gersh versus Anglin, which is abbreviated Gersh v. Anglin, a case in which Tanya Gersh challenged Andrew Anglin, accusing him of being a, quote, neo-Nazi. Now, I don't know anything about Andrew Anglin other than what I've briefly read about this case. This is not the primary case he should be referring to, because although Gersh did win her case against Anglin, she only won on the basis that Anglin refused to cooperate, he absconded, didn't show up for the depositions, and told his attorneys he's fleeing the country, never to return. Yes, that's right. You see, Gersh essentially went unchallenged. And as any attorney knows, if the defendant doesn't show up to challenge what the plaintiff says after having been properly served notice of process, then the courts tend to grant any reasonable request of the plaintiff. Now, granted, if she had asked for $100 billion, they probably would have knocked that number down a bit. But if you don't challenge a lawsuit after you've been properly served, if you just don't show up, the other side's gonna get what they want, or at least a good portion of it. So in the case of Gersh v. Anglin, this is not a case where the issues were properly hashed out in court, where both sides got to challenge each other and file all the relevant complaints and responses and prayers and all that other stuff. They use strange language in legal proceedings. This is not a case where all the issues in contention were addressed. This is a case where the defendant simply up and left the country. And I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that, according to what I've researched, it appears that Miss Gersh has collected exactly $0 of her 14-some million settlement she won. Isn't it nice to win a bunch of money that you never get? It's kind of like saying you won the lotto but lost the ticket, therefore you just never get the money. Does it matter that you won if you never get the money? You see, I'm going to take you back to a short little section of my previous video I did talking about Alyssa Mercante's threat to sue, and I want you to watch it now. Because see, here's the other thing about civil lawsuits. Most civil lawsuits that are won by the plaintiff collect little to no money. What? There is a lot of money that is won in court that is never collected upon. Oh, well, would you look at that?
It's as if I know what I'm talking about.
I say that many civil litigation cases are won and never collected upon, and here we have, right here, Alyssa's attorney referring to a case where the winnings were never collected upon. Unless I'm mistaken and my research is faulty, it appears she hasn't gotten anything at all. They can't find the guy, and the guy, believe it or not, refuses to cooperate. Can you believe that a guy would go into hiding to avoid paying $14 million? So before he locked down his account, known as @Lane_Stellmaker, Lane Haywood, Alyssa's attorney, he actually responded to me calling his letter unprofessional and laced with insults. He said, and I quote, "We are sorry it hurt your feelings, Mark, but is it a body hurt or just an inside hurt?" Unquote. Well, that sounds very left-wing, wokey, liberal, doesn't it? That sounds like the exact kind of thing Alyssa herself might say. And oh, look at this. So let me say this. If you or anyone you know is served with court documents, served by legal process of someone's litigation against you that has been filed in court, you need to do a few things. Number one, you need to immediately stop posting publicly or privately videos, content, posts, text, anything regarding the case and any of the named parties. Immediately stop. Trust me on this one. Don't talk to me about free speech. Yes, free speech.
But stop.
Ask any attorney, they'll tell you the same thing. Stop all posting, stop all discussion of the issue. Don't say anything. Don't even say you've been served with paperwork. Second thing you do, you research and find an experienced attorney who has specific experience in civil litigation. Don't just go find a family member who does divorce law. Don't just go find some family or friend of the family who does criminal defense, because there are different specializations in law. And attorneys, if they're honest and if they care about you, will often literally say, look, I am qualified to represent you in this. However, it's not my specialty. I'm not the best at this. Let me give you some names of people I know who are much better. You need someone who is specialized and experienced in court, not just filing documents and getting cases settled out of court. You want someone who has been to court to hash these issues out in front of a judge. And you want that attorney on your side as quickly as possible. If you have to pay out of pocket, do so. Because trust me on this one, you do not want to represent yourself. The legal world is not based on rational, sane, logical common sense. I'm not saying it's insane, but it's close to it. Because the world of legal proceedings is all about procedure and niche law and all sorts of unique filings and deadlines and special circumstances. There's all sorts of things that attorneys can do. And they can send you documentation and be like, hey, I know you represent yourself. I just want to send you this filing and this and that. And they'll mislead you into believing that everything's okay. Maybe it's not too bad. Maybe you've got these days to do this. No, trust me on this one. The other side's attorney will run circles around you with paperwork that you don't understand, and you will try to file something on your own, and you know what's going to happen? It will get thrown out because it doesn't follow some niche little specific unique procedural issue, or it doesn't have some specific language in it. Judges do not want to deal with laymen who come into court with generic arguments. You won't even know when to make certain arguments, much less which arguments to make, much less which arguments have any water whatsoever in a court of law. If you just go in there talking off the cuff, the judge is going to immediately stop you and say, oh, hold up now, this is a blank kind of hearing. And in blank kinds of hearings, we don't address those issues. And you're going to be like, what? But on, Law and Order and all the TV shows, you just kind of argue whatever you want, whenever you want. Well, that's TV. In real court, there are specific times and places for certain things. There are different kinds of hearings that they have. There are the depositions, there's the discovery phase, there's all sorts of stuff that happens, and you won't even know what you can or can't challenge. You won't even know what you can or can't file and when to file it, or how to file it, or what the time frames are. And do not ask the judge, because the judge is not supposed to give you legal advice. That's not what the judge is there for. Trust me on this one, guys. Trust me on this one, guys. If you are served legal process of litigation against you, immediately cease all discussion, postings, videos, etc. on the issue, on the litigation, on all of the named parties. Immediately stop. Second, get an experienced attorney, pay if you have to, get them on your side, and start the process of responding. And third, of course, your attorney should already know to do this, but if not, tell them you want to counterclaim. It's not called a countersuit or you're not countersuing, you're counterclaiming because it's a claim in the same lawsuit against you. You want to file a counterclaim for all attorney's fees, all court fees, and all other fees as allowed by law. This means that if the other side is found to be frivolous or to not have much of a basis for it, in this case Alyssa Mercante, will be required to pay all of your attorney's fees and court fees. And so with that threat looming over her and her attorney may have a discussion and decide, you know what, we're going to go ahead and dismiss you as a defendant in this case. And that does happen quite a lot. Once again, I want to reiterate, I'm not a bar licensed attorney. What experience I have should be viewed as a layman's experience with some training per my job, where I have reviewed literally countless legal documents. It's part of what I do for a living. I read them all the time. I have to read law and apply it in practical situations. I then have to write up legal documents. I then have to read tons of legal documents. I work with various different attorneys in all sorts of different capacities, and I have been represented by quite a few attorneys in my time, because what I do for a living requires that occasionally I may or may not end up getting litigated against. I can't say anything about any litigation or may not have been a part of, other than to say
It's been resolved.
And with that, guys, please heed my warning. If you serve legal process,
Don't take it lightly.
thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, but don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tap that notification bell icon. And a huge thank you and shout out to Super Real Gamer Drunken Dwarf and Real Gamer Cornelius Noland. And consider joining the channel. It's as cheap as $1.99 and you get to enjoy all these special perks. Click join now. And if you want to support my channel in another way, consider picking up my novel, New Tokyo. It's available on Amazon and Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and paperback formats. Link in the description. And, as always, my friends, for Fox's sake, stay real, keep playing, and never forget, yesterday's tomorrow is today's today.
Thing sucks!
Everything that guy just says, bullshit. Thank you.